o'clock. We'll go ahead and get started. Today is January 28th, 4 o'clock here at the municipal building where we're gathered for our workshop. Call to order, turn to quorum present. Okay, all this will give the rest of the meeting. So number one, discussion regarding the zoning ordinance and future land use map. So let's get started. Sure. Yeah. So Brandon, last time we met, it was too small. Right. We wanted to blow it up, and so now we got some time we can spend looking through this. And you can walk us through it, Brandon.
Yeah, I'm realizing maybe Alexis and I will put our chairs.
Yeah, y'all can come closer that way.
You go on one side, the other way. Just better.
Yeah. So talk us through it. Would you recommend having a certain page of ODC open for like the regional community?
Yeah, absolutely. I would go to bring it back up. Probably go to
So YouTube, people can see it now. Get like 2 views.
You go to chapter 2, which is, and then go to, you'll see in chapter 2, as we've talked about before, we generally have like 2 main categories of zoning districts that the ODC is proposing to establish. We'll have our legacy districts, which legacy districts are basically the districts that the city has right now. Your R districts.
Can we get that one? Do we have that here? The big one? Just so we can put it aside.
Yeah, exactly. Great idea, because then we can, because there's a relationship between the future land use map and the zoning map. So right now you've got what the proposed ODC is calling legacy districts. And the legacy districts are your existing districts, like your residential, your commercial, your public, your multifamily. And the reason why the proposed code that you have in front of you is proposing to call those legacy districts is because with the new proposed code, the city would be establishing new zoning districts, because the understanding is that these existing zoning districts aren't generally equipped to handle future development. They're old zoning districts that don't fit for modern times. And so they're called legacy because with the new code, someone would not be able to come in and rezone properties with those new districts. So you wouldn't be able to create new legacy districts. You can leave them as is, and we're not proposing, at least I'm not proposing to change existing districts.
Put it up over here.
The proposed zoning code is merely proposing to create new districts that properties could be zoned to in the future. And that's where the future land use map comes into play.
You could just actually
turn it. Let's just if you turn it.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And then you could just lean it up against that too. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Then we can see both.
Perfect.
So that's the old one. Those are the legacy districts.
Yeah. And so,
and just to clarify, so when would new districts come into play compared to the new legacy districts?
So on day 1, if assuming that y'all adopt this code in some iteration of what we have in front of you today, that zoning map would not change. The colors would not change. The classifications would not change at all. In the code, in the proposed draft that we're going to be talking about tonight, some of the uses that are allowed in those existing zoning districts may change, and some of the development standards by which new development has to develop to in those zoning districts may change. But the colors on that map, the classifications on that map would not change as a function of adopting this code. What this code would address in terms of, and what the new districts would address is, so when someone comes in to develop, they would have these new districts and the planned development district to potentially choose from to rezone. And that's where this map is going to be a guide, because state law says that all zoning changes, zoning regulations that are made shall be done in conformance with a future land use map.
So the only time that anybody would even need to worry about this is if they bought a property or they have a property that they don't want to do what the legacy district has.
Right.
And they want to change their zoning. So if somebody wanted to get a commercial property, or somebody bought a commercial property but needed something that didn't allow,
Correct.
then they would have to go through a zoning process.
And we would look at this.
And we'd have one of these options.
Exactly. Because one thing I haven't done, and we could do this maybe before future public meetings, is do an existing land use map. And that just really gets into showing, all right, this area is mostly single family residential. So this is purely a map that's intended to guide future zoning and future land use considerations. There may be some considerations where people come in with a planned development district. And then you have to look at what are they proposing? Is that consistent with community uses as we define them in this code? And that's where the descriptions of neighborhood areas, community areas, and regional areas comes into play.
Could that ever change though in the future? So how we have it set up, we're protecting the legacy districts, and this being the case that somebody wants to do something their legacy district can't do, that is the only trigger that they would have to even worry about the new zoning districts. Is there a chance that could change in the future? Like, would the city look at adopting, this new zoning districts and wiping away the legacy? I'm just
so if I understand your question, you're saying,
I like how we're setting it up to
Yeah.
protect the legacy districts.
Right.
I'm just curious, in the future, could it just revert to
the new districts?
Right.
Exactly. I would say, I would wait, maybe 50 years from now, you no longer have any of the, I would wait until you don't have any legacy districts anymore.
I guess that's what the question.
Yeah,
Are the
exactly.
legacy districts protected?
I think
Yes.
you can't change them, right?
Dude, if somebody came in and wanted to develop under anybody who's currently doing what they're doing in the legacy district cannot be told to stop doing what they're doing because of what it has changed to.
We can't force them into the new zoning district.
No, you can't. I mean, you could force them into the new zoning. You could. The city could always do city-initiated zoning. That's what when we first started out, I was telling you guys, there's a couple of different ways that cities go about creating a new UDC, and a couple of different ways they go about doing a future land use map, and a few different ways they go about implementing that future land use map through zoning. Some cities will just flat go out and do huge city initiated rezonings. City of San Antonio does that. Some more, pushy cities like City of Bernie or other places, they'll do that. That's not my recommendation for planning. I don't like that. I don't think that's cool. I recommend, if the city is not satisfied with your current districts, don't go change people's zoning. Number one, from a political standpoint, that's crazy. And number two, like if you're not happy with your existing zoning districts, just change some of the things in those zoning districts. But if you don't like those districts, create new ones, and it's called floating. You float new zoning districts. They're there, floating there for people to use. But
That's what these are.
Well, those aren't zoning districts. These are land use categories that are intended to guide zoning districts, because the state law says, and I should have.
Well, those match, like community area
Yeah.
and community district.
You can have the same names. You can have similar nomenclature. Your future land use map cannot be zoning. We can't have, like, literally under state law. State law says future land use, I just call it a regional area, but then we have a regional district. You can't have regional district, community district. Your future land use map, can't literally be zoning, but.
So we don't have one currently, because all we have is a zoning map.
Right, you just have a zoning.
Okay, proceed.
Cool. Yeah, but absolutely, you could, if you guys want, if say y'all didn't like having a legacy and you wanted things to be super clean, you could rezone the whole city.
Yeah, no, I don't like that.
No, exactly.
I like how we have it set it up
Yeah.
to where if this is really just for other future, development.
And you've got, I think Jacob was kind of getting into the concept of legally non-conforming. You guys are gonna have situations where you're gonna have properties that are zoned commercial and aren't developed with any uses. It's just commercial piece of land is grass, right? Well, anybody can continue to develop a new use as long as it complies with the commercial district right now, or if y'all adopt this, as long as it complies with the commercial district as proposed. Now, there's some properties that are zone commercial that have existing uses on them. And say if those uses aren't allowed in our new code, like say it's a concrete batch plant, and and maybe the concrete that's my proverbial example land use, right? And so say concrete batch plant's not allowed in the proposed zoning, then that becomes a legally non-conforming use. They're able to keep going. Nobody can ever go shut them down. They can't expand, but they can keep going. So there's there's kind of different levels of application to existing properties whenever you come in and do rezone. That makes sense.
Okay. Well, let's go over the map. Cool.
So yeah, so you have before you a proposed UDC, proposed new zoning districts, proposed new zoning regulations, printed out, and then you have before you here a proposed future land use map. So why do we have both of these things in front of you? Well, as the mayor pointed out, you guys don't have this right now. And this is probably one of the most important things that a city has, because not only does state law say that if you have a comprehensive master plan, you have to have a future land use plan, and if you have a future land use plan, your zoning needs to follow it. You guys don't have this right now, so therefore, and I'm recommending that you adopt this because this gives strength to your zoning regulations. If you don't have a future land use map, in my opinion as a planner, it kind of opens you up for the inability to defend the zoning that you apply. A comprehensive plan is something that the state says, it doesn't require you to have a comprehensive plan, but if you have it, you need to follow it. Y'all do have a comprehensive plan you adopted, it just doesn't have a future land use plan in it. And so the state contemplates the city having that, totally gives you the right to have that. I recommend that you have that for y'all as a governing body, and for the citizens. It's kind of one of those things where citizens, as long as they know the city has this, it's kind of understood that you guys are going to be following it. And that's one of the utilities having this plan, so citizens don't have to come down to city council meetings, and not that y'all wouldn't, but future leadership. And so state law says, so since I'm recommending y'all have a future land use plan, and since state law says if you have a future land use plan, your zoning needs to generally follow it. The zoning codes that I've written in there in the draft generally follow this plan and would fit within these districts. So as you pointed out, Mayor, just try to keep it simple. You've got regional areas, commercial areas, and neighborhood areas.
And define each one of those. Like, what's a regional area? We're talking commercial, industrial.
Yeah. So different planners have different approaches. You guys, if you hire one firm, they may come in and just say this is a mixed use area, or they may have this is a residential one area or something. My approach as a planner, the way I recommend seeing things is really in any city, you have areas that are used for regional uses. You go to San Antonio, you go to the intersection of I-35 and 410. That's regional retail uses out there. You've got people that go to that area come from throughout the region. Say you may go to Benton City Road, or you may go to, I think of a smaller road. That's just a road that the community uses. So that's the way I recommend kind of classifying things. You've got areas that are going to be developed with regional uses, community uses, neighborhood uses, and it's really a function of scale. When you look at a regional area, the scale is a lot bigger. And so I think it makes sense because in terms of organizing development regulations, what are things that zoning regulations, development regulations address? They address use, they address design of buildings, they address the scale of buildings, what height is appropriate where. And so in regional areas, usually they're more scale, they're more intense, they have more traffic, buildings are going to be larger, the developments are going to be more complex, you're going to have more parking. So those are all development and built out physical characteristics of a regional area. You don't, when you get into a smaller neighborhood area, you don't have big parking lots. You don't have huge big box buildings. You don't have 4 or 5 story apartment complexes. You don't have 4-story hotels. Those are more local neighborhood oriented uses. So that's the way I'm recommending that you organize your land uses on your map, is just keep it simple. You're gonna have areas that are gonna be regional. Usually those regional areas or regional uses are gonna be located at regional crossroads with major highways, major roads. And your more neighborhood oriented uses are gonna be more located, more interior of the city. Smaller roads, areas that are located away from the major areas. So in my opinion, that's the best way to organize land uses, organize your zoning, and organize what types of occupancies and what the development regulations are.
Okay.
So that's the general idea.
So the community seems, I understand it's not like the big farm buildings, it's not commercial, but there are commercial. When I look at this, and the feedback I had initially is that this is a lot of community districts. We have a lot of land, we have a lot of residential as it is, and we don't have a lot of residential on that map.
Yeah.
All that orange, like I could see 50, 100 years. I mean, I could kind of see things kind of playing out in a more dense environment.
Yeah.
But I think that's so far away that the general feedback, at least I've gotten, we had a survey out, which I'm very interested to see the results of the survey when it comes to like this aspect. But that's a lot of density. You know, there's no single family homes, there's duplexes, it's multifamily, like all in there. That's all currently residential or ag. We're showing it as community districts for everything in the CD, basically. You know, I know they don't go hand in hand, but if we're reviewing a zoning application and somebody wants to build houses there, if they wanted to go, well, I don't know, I'm trying to shoot for a scenario. I guess the ETJ doesn't quite apply. They won't have to come to us for zoning. But if we're looking at an application on current residential district and we showed as a community district, they wouldn't need to rezone. They could still do their residential. Am I right?
Sorry, can you redo that?
So like I'm looking at our legacy districts, they're residential, and so I'm comparing this CD, which is really and I'm primarily focused south of I-35, but it also applies.
You're talking about this color orange or the dark reddish?
The orange, the community district.
This?
Yeah.
Yeah, gotcha.
That just seems like a lot, and it seems really dense.
Okay. Yeah, and again, great feedback. I mean, this is why we're here. You know, this is the starting point, you know, because I created this map based off, I guess, some underlying assumptions that I'm working with for you guys. You know, a few of the assumptions have to do with location in general, and other assumptions have to do with things like, you know, my understanding of y'all's tax base, and then something else with the community. That's kind of where, when we get into this, you can kind of see what land uses are allowed where. So first thing I'll talk to with that, and I'll just walk you guys through my assumptions. I think that probably be the best thing to do. You know, you look at an area like here, I don't personally see single family homes going in here in any of this. You know, right now you've got T&I that went in here. That's going to be a big truck yard facility. You know, you've got one of the most trafficked highway in the country, goes from north to south, and then you've got a railroad track that's really noisy. So I don't see any neighborhoods going in here at all. And I really don't, frankly, see any kind of like community uses in terms of like stuff that just the community uses. I really see this being like, this is where your regional stuff goes in.
It's a
like
retail,
your Walmart or your Target. Hopefully it's done nicely, not a big ugly box, but your HEB, that kind of stuff. Parking lots, maybe some more intensive uses up against the railroad. So, I mean, this one, frankly, I'll just kind of when I was coloring with my paintbrush, that was a piece of cake. Red, that's easy. And then when I got down here, you know, this area was a little bit trickier. You know, this, you know, there's some typical like distances, you know, in the real estate business. You know, it used to be 250 feet was enough for retail. Now it's like 750. I mean, you look at the depth of an HEB. I mean,
what is that?
Oh man, you can ask me. I should have brought. I get Alexis to vote me for not putting a scale on here. I'm pretty sure this was, actually I know what the scale is. It's 1 inch equals 300. It was, so now it's 1 inch equals 600. So I think, yeah, that's about, actually, you know what? These are 9. That's about 900 feet right there. Yeah, it's about 900 feet.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that's about 9. So that's pretty typical. And that's also a good distance, you know, and that's how I came up with my offsets. You know, usually you're going to want, what do you call it? Back road, a back road. You know, you're going to want, like when you get Walmart or something that goes in, or a big, you know, they're going to want another back road here. So that kind of helps out with spacing potential collector streets. There's some standards for spacing for, you know, typical local streets. You're going to have 300 feet of distance. For your collector streets, you're going to have like a 1/4 mile. You know, your arterials are always going to be like 2,500 to 5,000 feet away, just depending on traffic, I think. So that's how I was able to come up with. So again, this one was pretty easy, just to kind of offset that and paint that, because maybe you get some residential. I mean, this development here, which from what I understand is not going to happen now, they were proposing residential up against the road. I would never recommend it. If somebody came in and you guys had the potential to negotiate, I'd never recommend that you have residential right up
But
against
since
the
they're
road.
under ETJ, we don't have any say.
Well, I think you will. I think with the aggressive development regulations that you guys passed a couple months ago, if somebody comes in here with the standards that KB and Lennar are used to developing to, they're going to have to come to the table, and you can say, all right, you guys want to develop this? We want you to reserve some commercial here. And why is that important? This is easy to paint because you guys don't get property taxes. You don't make money off of
We'll do a little bit now.
Oh, okay. Well, even the city of San Antonio has got a study that I'll show you guys. Even with 0.55 cents for every $100 of evaluation, they have a study that says that single-family residential with densities lower than like 5 units per acre loses money for a city. Single-family residential, like if you were a business, it would be a losing product to manufacture until you get over like 8-9 units per acre, like you get into the townhouse range. That's when you're starting to quote unquote make some money potentially, and you're not like you're literally getting into the black. But single family residential, there's an argument that single family residential is good. It's rooftops that'll bring in retail, but I would say don't think that Lennar and KB Homes is going to be making the city any money. It's indirect because those rooftops would potentially spend money at retailers. So my opinion, that was easy to color because you guys are a consumption-based economy. If it seems like I'm being overly academic, it's because Alexis is learning as we go. We were going to talk about it. I was like, hey, I'll be explaining. So you guys are like a retail-based economy, so you guys need to be preserving area for retail.
Now notice some of these tracks are split between districts. Should we try to keep existing platted tracks all one district type?
District, yeah. You should always have, I won't say you should never have, but it's good practice not to have different zoning on one district. But this is a future land use map. Okay. So these are land use classifications. So you can paint those lines. You don't have to paint those lines as a function of where the goofy parcel lines are that God knows whatever reason they were carved up that way. This is a future land use map. So this is your plan. And that's the difference in terms of trying to explain the difference between a zoning map and a future land use map. That is a regulatory mechanism. This is a picture, a tapestry that illustratively is the result of ordinance changes. So that's why if you ever look at city zoning maps, they're a mess because it's just this weird illustration that manifests zone changes over the time that were done for good reasons or bad reasons. This is your plan. So it's important that this is normalized and regulated.
What happens if somebody comes in and trying to rezone their property and it's split between the two uses? Would the board still be able to decide? So like looking at just some random property, like the ones you're just pointing to. So it's got both community district and regional district. If they came in, right now they're zoned commercial. If they came in and they wanted to apply for a zoning, I guess, a community district use,
Yeah.
they wouldn't be able to,
They could.
or we would have the basis to say no.
Well,
but
you'd
we
also
could
have,
still say yes.
you'd have the basis to change this though. And that's the thing, you know, this,
Whoa, whoa, whoa. What do you mean change that?
you guys can change this
On
whenever
the
you want to.
fly?
Not on the fly, but in the same manner as that. If you look at the city of San Antonio, it's
Plan amendment.
a plan amendment. And
You want to do that every time you get a project.
yeah, you absolutely. This is both of these maps are subject to your will. These maps are not intended to bind you. They're intended to protect the city and to give, but you always have the authority as the governing body to change this if you see fit and if you think that a project is a good project.
And they have a planned district.
Or they have a planned district.
But the planned district have the basis to approve it, it has to be in line with those.
Yeah,
plans.
but if for some reason you guys find it, I mean, that's what you have me for, is to kind of like tell you, if somebody comes into the planned district, like, all right, we want to have this nice townhouse, but we want to create this really noxious, like, use over here in the planned district. I'm like, okay, well, because planned districts still kind of have to comply with the plans. You can't come in with a PD for, really noxious use in the neighborhood and get approved. That's still spot zoning. So you'd have to change this plan, but you guys can do that. It's just one other item on your agenda.
All right, so how within the regional and community districts, I see, the code here, there's, levels. How do we decide, do we need to decide on the future land use map, which level it is going to fall in?
Well,
Okay.
that's where, when you look at the code, that's where the code comes in. And the code it's a code, so it's kind of a decoder. And so that's what the job of the UDC is. There's different planning, like I said, there's different planning approaches to a future land use map. As planners, typically as planners, and from a planning best practice, it's recommended to keep it as simple and bubbly as possible. Because, most cities I've worked for, the only difference between the land use map and the zoning map is the fact that that doesn't have the word district on it. And it's just not good practice. And so every time somebody comes in to get its own change, they typically have to change the map, and it's just ridiculous. It defeats the purpose of the map. It's best practice to keep it simple. And as a planner, keep it simple and understandable, and so the public can understand it. In my opinion, just call these for what they are. These are regional areas. Within a regional area, you can potentially have an RD1, an RD2, or an RD3. Within a community area, you can have a CD1 or I can't remember if we own. Yeah, and in a neighborhood area, you can have an ND1 or an ND2. And then if you look in the code, Jacob, there's guidance about within this area, you can request an RD1 or an RD2 depending on, proximities and those types of things. So that's where, if you go to 2.05, where you've got your farm and ranch, your farm and state district, you've got your neighborhood district, and if you look at applicability, that's what guides the public or guides you guys. If you look at somebody's got a neighborhood district, they're in a neighborhood area, and say they want to do a neighborhood 2 district. And so, all right, we look at it. Okay, they're right here. They want a neighborhood 2 district. Says ND2 districts may be applied in areas indicated in the future land use plan as neighborhood not abutting regional streets. So it's that's a regional street, so you wouldn't be able to put single family homes in. That's let me see. Is that regional? No, you can.
You
can do that. Yeah.
Should that be
Yeah.
done? I think that came from Bear County's plan or somebody else's
Yeah.
plan. The Bear
That's a
County-
regional thoroughfare. So in my opinion, I wouldn't put single family houses right up against.
But it's all single family now, and there's bigger pieces there. So my general feedback, I think there's a lot of community areas. I'd also say the floodplain area where it's mixed in between community areas. It's not going to be a community area. That's most likely going to end up residential, like north of Trey Walter.
Yeah.
I believe the RV park, is that a community district?
And the one at the top there,
Yeah,
that's
so like,
like regional, it looks like.
you know, if we could incorporate more of some of the existing uses, I think that's the only one that really applies.
So look at maybe doing this neighborhood. in
Yeah,
here.
it's all in the floodplain. I don't see that being
Yeah.
community. The RV park should match what it currently is, its existing use.
Cool.
And then,
Okay.
those are my like general options for that.
Yeah.
I mean, all right, so y'all know Von Ormy better than anyone else. Is it unreasonable to restrict single-family residential on regional roads? Do we need to lift that restriction?
Well, what about future, like how's it gonna be 20 years from now?
Well, I mean, are y'all gonna consider it a regional road, like, you know?
All of here,
Yeah.
all of here down Von Ormy Road.
So keep in mind, like, when somebody comes in to develop, you're gonna have one of these, so perfect example, you know, I mean, in here. You're gonna have somebody, like, a developer's gonna come in and they're gonna consolidate land. You know, right, so it's not like this one person's gonna come in, like, they're gonna consolidate all of this, you know, they're gonna sit and wait until they have all these properties together, and then somebody's gonna try to come in. And so it's not gonna be a function of like this whole piece of property not being able to be used because this whole thing fronts, they're gonna plat it. And so they'll show you a plan for development and say they plat it and they carve off the front pieces, they can still develop the back with residential. The idea is that you guys are, you know, the purpose of this map is not just to like tell people, it's to preserve your tax base and to preserve some of these roads for higher, like for potential retail uses. So that's why, you guys can change it if you want, but that's why I was thinking, hey, let's not have single family houses in your regional roads because that's potentially where you're gonna have some community tax generating uses. And so when somebody comes in and subdivides, they subdivide off the front, stuff on the front. And then they,
so far away.
yeah. So the idea behind this is you're kind of like, you're planning for the next 50 to 100 years. And so, you know, if you have single family homes that develop all along here, you're done. You're done. And you can't get that stuff back. You can't, like you guys, and again, I'll get off my soapbox about this. Like, I think that development is coming elsewhere in the next 10 years are going to be like, 10 to 20 years is going to be it for this city. And if you guys don't get it right, then, you know, you'll be one of those cities that 20 years, 30 years from now, you're like, damn. Yeah. You know, so these are my assumptions.
Yeah. So feedback from the commissioners on that question. You don't have any of the residential kind of components, like versus the community districts, these orange areas. Y'all know Von Ormy best.
So like as it sits right now, those orange districts here coming down Benton City Road are gonna be, you know, disallowed from future residential without a zoning.
They can do residential, they just can't do, so again, maybe we get into the code and you guys can see what stuff is allowed in these districts. Because residential comes in residential comes in multifamily, residential comes in single family, residential comes in townhouses, so there's residential allowed in there.
In community districts, it's apartments, beds and breakfasts, hotels, motels, short-term rentals, single-family attached townhomes. That's what would be allowed there, not single-family homes
Well,
on standard lots.
let's go to the permitted use matrix, because that's where you need to look.
Isn't that what this is?
Yes. So you've got,
So page 25.
Yeah, this one.
Yeah.
so you can do townhouses in the CD district. You can do, yeah, I mean, you can do townhouses, you can do some multifamily. There's, here, you can go to apartment, you can actually do like apartment buildings there, and I don't mean like apartments, I mean like smaller multifamily, different types. What we're getting into.
Higher density though.
Higher
that's
density.
my point.
And that's the thing is like, this discussion, you know, I'm not coming to you guys saying this is right or this is wrong. You know, it's really a discussion about, you know, what, you know, all of the different aspects of residential, single family residential. If you guys want to have lots of single family residential in your community, well then that's why we're here looking at this map. You know, I'm kind of taking a first shot at, you know, what I would say I see as a sustainable build out over time with a variety of different land uses.
And what I don't want to do is chain us to something where we don't have the capability of doing. We don't have sewer. Sewer is a very long process. And if somebody wants to, say, for instance, annex into the city and do something different, like I'm specifically talking about our ETJ, we have this land use comprehensive map, and we got to give them a zoning in line with that.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody's going to want to annex because why annex into something they can't build?
So, you know, you're hitting on something that we were.
What is
So many feet from the road. And we build
Yeah.
can do that.
Yeah, I kind of like that.
Like, so they
You
can't.
have buffer zones.
Can we do like a buffer between the regional thoroughfare and where they can build a single family?
So you're saying like,
Is it like a certain distance or?
well,
Because it will tell you from the survey, people do not want the townhome
Yeah.
so far.
Oh, really? Yeah, and so that's just like the general feedback I've gotten too, and we kind of talk.
They what?
Like
People
people
do
don't.
not want apartments and townhomes.
Yeah. well, then that's exactly why we're doing the survey, so people can see, you know.
And they don't have a whole lot of answers, but I did have some.
Yeah.
How many do you have? 10?
More.
20? 50?
Well, there you go, so that's, so I'd say tonight, you know, you guys, y'all are hearing from the survey what citizens want. Y'all have your own thoughts about maybe dialing back the community, and so, so ideally, we walk away tonight with, I walk away tonight with some ideas on how to change this. Because, you know, the first step is me just taking a first stab at it, coming in and showing it to you guys. Y'all giving me feedback. And then we get feedback from the surveys. And then we have an open house for this thing and we invite people in. And then they have the chance to really see it and say, wait a second, I don't like that, you know, or, and then we have, and what we'll do is something that I did in Blanco, where you have different development types. You set pictures of stuff. You have some pictures of townhouses. You have some pictures of cottages. You'll have some pictures of snout houses, what I call them, which is like a single family home where 75% of the front of it's a garage. You know, we'll show them a bunch of pictures and say, take these things and pin the tail on the donkey. Show us where you want these things. And then based on that, then we're able to come up with a finalized map where people have said, these are the kind of uses and this is where we want them. And so tonight, this is exactly the feedback I need. You guys are saying, you know, no more, not as much townhouse, not as much cowbell, take it down, and there you go. We'll take, and I can take it down. Like I said, this is just my first stab at, you know, kind of feeling like there's development that's coming to y'all, and these are some sustainable land uses that can make some money for the city and also be really nice, provided they're developed well. But you guys want more single family than community wants that. Let's paint it that way.
I think we'd all agree on the commercial pieces to this. We all want this commercial 1604 I-35. That's the commercial. That's the sales tax. I think where the disagreement's going to be with our survey and the public's going to be the density of community districts versus residential. And so those are my kind of feelings towards that. But I think, you know, we're going to get. So mainly more so like in the heart, like Von Ormy Heights, like at Von Ormy Road and Benton City Road, right in the middle of the city. Like all of that, I think is a little overkill.
Okay. What about down here?
I would also
Yellow.
think I like the city administrator's idea with the buffer.
Yeah.
Let's look at that when we get into here.
Preserve like a commercial.
So draw a buffer on here. Because I'd recommend, I would, again, the purpose of this map, like, that's not intended to be something that physically manifests. That's just a legal thing. But this
Right.
is intended to give guidance for physical build out. So if you want to do a buffer, I think the thing is I did generally on this one, I did follow some property lines. So I'd say, if you want 300 feet, let's just bring it back. That's totally normal.
And then bring it back as it goes up, Bend City Road.
Maybe have it aligned to these.
Yeah, and then
You just have it kind of follow these roads here.
then like where the castle is, you have all that as community district. That's all like floodplain in there.
Okay.
I kind of see that's gonna probably mean.
I'm just going to scribble means neighborhood.
What, highlighter?
I like the pen. I like the scribble.
And then back in Rife Lane, so at the back of Rife Lane, like that road, in here it shows it going all the way.
Oh, wait, yeah.
I
I think it's property line. It makes it a property line or so.
is that what it is?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just,
Well, there's, pretty big, like, what is the likelihood of that road continuing all the way to Balmain Road?
Well, it's, you have to go through, there's only one top, no, there's two properties.
But isn't there a big gully or drainage in there?
And it's pretty good,
Like all that floodplain,
it's all wet.
yeah, it'd be very expensive for that road to eventually connect to Balmain Road. And we're looking at things we can do for Rife Lane. But I don't know, like back into Rife Lane, how much of that would be community district? Basically, your whole neighborhood would need to be apartments, duplexes.
You could put them up there, yeah.
Yeah, you could, but you have to, And so that's why I think we could dial back commercial district there, and kind of around that area where where Rife Lane is, Brandon? Yeah.
So maybe.
Like all that around, basically all that around where that creek is.
Uh-huh.
Like I think all that's a little much.
Okay. Usually, like you want to have a little bit of a transition. Like I wouldn't recommend going from neighborhood to regional. So you guys want me to maybe play with some offsets there and kind of graduate from, or do you want to just make this community right here? I don't know.
I think
It's hard because it's right up next to the freeway, but
it's pretty versatile right
Yeah.
there though. I could see both community uses, because that's like where the church is. There's not much else there. It's where the strip club used to be. It's where the park is. Like I could see that regional and community, but maybe we leave it as regional. And then on the north side of Trey Walter, the floodplain was the other piece.
yep, in here,
Yeah, like I can really see that being commercial.
and then this too.
The drawing arm only goes to the park. Well, actually, it only goes to the, church's property.
What about in here?
I like that.
Yeah.
I don't know if it needs to be quite as big.
I like it too for a couple of reasons. I recommend that you allow more density over there because it's pretty flat. It's also
separate from the main part of the city.
exactly, and it's
That's where
also
you're gonna have it.
it's also about to become floodplain. Like that's all zone X, which is literally going to be 100-year floodplain. So it's giving them more density is going to help them develop too. Especially if you're going to ask for some community or some regional there. So yeah, cool. You guys are cool with this?
I'm cool with that.
Okay.
South of it, I don't really know. Like I get the regional on the that piece. I don't really know. I'm not affiliated with it anymore, but I know the owners. I think that could be a lot of different uses right there. It's really hard to say right now. I like how it connects. Like when I first came to Ridgecrest, I wanted to extend that road.
Yeah.
It wouldn't let me. I like you have it drawn in there, so it would be great. But I think that's also a
You have
lot of
permission.
roads. Like is that a dotted line that goes through Ridgecrest, or is it just the one going that way?
No, it's a small collector. It kind of just follows the existing street of Ridgecrest.
I just think there's like to the west of that, that's a lot of roads. Really, I think everywhere. Has a lot of roads.
Those are property lines. So next time I do this map, I'm gonna make the property lines a little bit. So that's a road. So really it's just, I mean, that's like 1,000 feet apart there. I think that's a long distance. Those are just main roads. And then whoever builds in it maybe would have smaller neighborhood ones. Yeah, I need to tone down the.
And then the RV park, if you're writing on it, let's make the RV park match, and that's all floodplain back there on the north side. Yeah, whatever the this is.
Regional.
Oh, is
RV
it
park's
regional?
like an RD 2 or 3.
Oh, okay. Well, then never mind. Oh, well, it's not even in here. It's all X's.
It's just the farm.
Yeah, it's just farm. RV park? Well, it just says recreational vehicle. It doesn't say RV park.
It should be in the, go down right below,
Oh,
recreational vehicle.
oh, you're right. Okay.
That's for just a standalone recreational vehicle. You can't just go plop that down on a lot somewhere.
Does that mean the Trey Walter, is that a regional road in this?
Yeah.
Is that Bear County too? Or did we make that? Cause that ain't gonna go anywhere.
You don't think it's gonna keep going
It
up?
might go to a park. I think I saw
Yeah.
San Antonio's like big park
Oh,
plan.
their regional park, they're gonna do a big regional park back there.
Yeah, I thought for some reason I had it in my head it was gonna all connect at some point. It was gonna keep going up and connect to the regional park, yeah. Maybe not.
Let's double check that. Otherwise, I don't see that up here.
Is that across the river?
Yeah, it goes to the RV park. It's all floodplain there.
Is that part of the city, both sides of that?
It's just this side. The rest is the ETJ.
Because that would be pretty good. Houses.
Yeah. And so like, it has some housing on the left side. And so I was saying on the right side would be housing too, because it's mixed in with the floodplain. And then what do we think about back behind your place? It's a community district. It's kind of hard to regulate that. That's our ETJ.
Where's this place?
On the left.
In here?
Yeah, that community district.
Along 35, I mean, 64.
Behind you. So he has the front as a regional area, so like commercial stuff, but then behind it, community district.
That was a tough one, 'cause I'm like,
So it's right, like how do we regulate on the other side of it? You know?
yeah, I mean, that was a tough one, because, I feel like this is probably gonna be regional in here, and so it's not great to have the neighborhood backing right up to whatever regional stuff goes there.
I might just make it all regional.
Okay.
But I don't know.
It's a lot of property.
That's a lot of property.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
I mean, that's an Amazon distribution center right there.
Yeah.
If you guys want that, I don't, a good best practice is to, allow for some transitional land uses in a place like that where it's so far out. A lot of cities would just kick the can down the road and call it ag because they don't know what it's going to be, which I think that's a pretty chicken exercise, because we all know this is not going to be ag. It's going to be something. So I think it's kind of an honorable thing to at least try to say, we know that's going to be regional, and that, say somebody wants to do a neighborhood there, well, they can come in and petition you guys for a future land use change. And then that gives you all the ability to, if they get annexed.
Right.
If Amazon comes in and says, we'll do our own water or something, I can't say anything.
You're talking about 400 or 500 acres. Huh?
Yeah. This is purely, it's hypothetical.
At least 200.
Well, 200, but that guy doesn't want to sell it.
Right. Okay.
But that'd be a nice community. Yeah.
So, question about the road. So, this is kind of achieving both the comprehensive land use map, but then also a transportation plan. So now that the laws have changed when it comes to platting and getting the dedicated roads, how does having the roads on here impact us now?
At least you're saying where you'd like for people to put the roads, if they would be
But they don't have
nice enough to do it.
But nobody has to adhere to it.
You don't have the ability to require that. That's where the block requirements and stuff comes into play.
And again, that's where, unfortunately, the state has really taken away cities' abilities to really be cities and try to grow in a sustainable manner. And I think we can all say we're on board with property rights. I know I am, but at the end of the day, collector streets and that kind of stuff really does serve the public good. We can see the mess that it's created in San Antonio when you don't have enough collector streets. And so the state's taken away our ability to do that. So unfortunately, they put us in a situation where, we're like, all right, we've got to be tough on this stuff. And so a lot of this is a protective mechanism to when somebody comes in and they propose something awful, you're able to get them into some sort of negotiation with the planned development district. And when you do a planned development district, they're going to be like, well, we need concessions for density, or we need concessions for this, or we need concessions for that. And then you say, all right, you want concessions for that? You're going to put the road right here. Well, why do you want to put the road right here? Because that's what our plan says, and the board adopted it, and that's defensible. So the point of this is just to come up with a plan. And of course, it's a plan that you can present to the MPO, and if they put it in their plan, then it is regulatory. And you can tell them where to put the road without any leverage.
And then I'd also just, some of the zoning districts have changed since this. I think it was like 2017, or I don't know. I have no idea what it is, but I know it's old.
This is map 1.0.
I know Rich West has updated since then, right? There's additional.
Yeah, so I know, I've updated, and so I'm assuming other people have updated since 2017.
Actually, you're one of the people, you and then one across the way.
So let's double check to make sure that, because I like how we're, as far as the uses go, this might be the only one that applies, but if there's other, let's just double check and make sure that there's no zoning districts that are current that are proposed different uses in the master plan that have already been.
Can you update it master plan?
That one? Let me check.
Is that a question?
Yeah.
She made
That's
that.
actually,
She made that.
okay.
Do y'all have any more feedback from Brandon on the map of changes?
No, I don't.
Do you agree with my feedback regarding the community
Yes, I do.
districts?
Yeah.
But then once you can show buildings on your map,
Bring it to
So
life.
that's something that I had spoken to Brandon about doing, like a rendering of what it would actually look like.
Yeah, that's something that we can do. I would recommend doing that for the public open house that you have. Because that's a great point. I totally get this stuff because I dream about
You
it.
can
In my
see
sleep. I see it. Like I know what the words turn into buildings. And you guys, we talk about it and y'all see it. And then, but the public walks in, they're like, what are these colors and what are all these 100 pages of words? How does that translate into the built stuff? And so Alexis and I have already kind of started working on, she found a program that she knows in school, it's called CAD Mapper, and it gives you all the building footprints. And it actually, unlike any data else that we could find, it actually has road edges and stuff. So we bought that for like $50, plugged it into CAD, and then we can do like a bird's eye and just plot buildings and stuff in there and give you guys a nice little bird's eye image. So people can see, here's the point of this.
Cool.
Yeah.
It's,
Isn't that like a video game where you like build cities?
Yeah, it's City Skylines.
City Skyline.
Yeah, my kids, I had Sim City when I was a kid.
Sim City.
Yeah, now the new one is called City Skylines.
Yeah, that'd be
That's
great.
why I'm here.
Because that is one thing, like looking at this, looking at the regional community, we're like, you've got to come through this to really understand it. And that was one of the questions when we present this to the public. Like, how can we make this easier? And I like that.
what other visuals would you like us to have?
Probably this blown up too.
The use matrix.
The use matrix.
We can do it like we did with the sewer project with the panels we can put up.
Yeah. And then I like what you said, if you could really do that. I mean, that would be cool.
I'll show you.
And then blow it up.
The picture. find it here in a second, but it's a nice little aerial that you can do, and then we can do it on something big like this, and then we can have little arrows that come down and show a picture of what a development in that area would look like. You know, what kind of houses would look like in that area.
Can you show future use of a elementary school or something like that? Or not?
I don't know. We could put something on there, like maybe I could try and figure out like what the average distance is, like how, like,
They have.
We know
one.
the property that's
Yeah.
all.
really? Okay.
You have it if it's a community district. It's actually just on the other side of the park right here, where Quarter Horse deads in. That's going to be the elementary school.
Wow, really? This whole thing here, or?
Yeah,
Future use,
We'll have to let them know that we've got a road going through there.
they already have a road. Like they have it cleared.
Wow.
yeah, because it's not showing there.
Right, it's not showing there.
Wow, cool.
A city has no school, is not a city.
Great.
And then you could also put our like city hall, that 15 acres just to the north of that property
Yeah.
market. That's where we are right now. You know, showing that we've always kind of thought of a square, kind of layout.
So,
I've also always liked the idea that Von Ormy Road and City Road piece. You have make
Yes.
that like block.
That's what I want so
City
bad.
Hall.
that's, okay, we're all
City
like,
Hall, police station.
we're on the same wave. That right there is your main street. Yeah. That's your main street right there.
Yeah,
That's, okay, so
That's
I wish I
100%.
could find.
So I like it. I just the way you have it triangular. I do like taking that in.
There's certain.
Something like this.
Oh yeah,
That's what she and I are gonna work on creating for you guys.
Oh, now that
Yeah,
wakes me up.
yeah, that brings it to life.
How many
That'll stir the
acres
blood.
We required for elementary.
I don't know, but they have I think 20.
Huh?
They had the Southwest ISD has 20.
20 acres?
Yeah, I don't know. You might know what's the minimum size for elementary school.
Gosh, I feel like I knew at one point.
I would assume at least 10.
Yeah.
10, 15 acres, huh?
I would think so. But they have 20 right here.
Just curious.
Yeah.
I'm looking at a site, of a new school site, I know it was in San Marcos. Oh, that was only like 8 acres or something.
Okay, now that we've talked about the map, do we have anything else to talk about with the map? Nope. And then we can talk about this. Howdy. Hello.
Am I interrupted?
No, come on in. You want to see our map?
Yeah. I read about that.
Yeah,
All the rooftops that you're gonna have to protect?
yeah.
That's not my kind of thing. How
Uh,
you doing? It's a work in
you already
progress.
got it?
It's a work in progress.
12 acres. This school.
12 acres.
12 acres?
12 acres.
Hey, how you
So
doing?
all the red's commercial, regional, I should say.
Nice.
Get your-
And then we got neighborhood areas of the yellow, and then community areas. I don't know. I still don't know how you define that. But
Yeah, just a mix of higher density residential, a mix of kind of retail uses that typically like the community uses, like pharmacy.
Yeah.
And you know, yeah,
that's a current map.
smaller restaurants,
That's,
mom and pop places, pretty much, mom and pop district. There you go.
is this basically the ETJ?
Yeah.
ETJ?
So it includes easy.
Nice.
It's for like future decisions to make zoning changes, and
I like it.
approve developments. We're gonna take in some of the orange, make that a little smaller, but those will all. Anything can always be changed. They can always apply for a planned district, or we can update the map.
Is there a digital version of this?
It's still in a iteration.
Yeah.
We'll have a public hearing. And
That'd be
have a
cool.
public comment.
It's good to have for the officers so they kind of have an idea of where to go, what to look for.
Yeah.
This is what we use right now just for patrolling and stuff, but I like it.
That's the one army bird.
It's a bird. He's got
Yeah,
beaks.
yeah. Yeah, it does look like it.
Little chicken.
An Von Army Angry Bird.
Yeah. Pac-Man. Oh, I see it now.
See, Leon Valley, it looks like a fish. It's got this fish with its mouth open, like.
Well, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just want to come by real quick.
Okay.
I had to see. If y'all need anything, I'm next door.
Sounds good. Okay, let's get into this. Thank you. ODC. So we've already passed several chapters to this, and this is everything else. That's right. Is the only new since the last time we went through this in blue? Has there been versions since?
Yeah, everything in blue, right, there's blue stuff in here. Yeah. There's some areas in blue, and what that is meant to show, that's stuff that I've added. Y'all seen this blue stuff. I left the blue in there to kind of show just sort of the changes that have happened over time since we talked. But I don't believe there's anything in here that y'all haven't seen, nothing's been added to this since the last.
All right, I'm gonna call one out here, just because
Bring it on.
funeral home must be on a corner lot abutting a community street in the ND2 district. That just sounds like somebody, not that we have an influx of funeral homes coming here, but it just seems very constricting to where a funeral home can put up shop if they wanted to put up shop.
So there's lots of places a funeral home can go. What that means is if they do want to go in an ND2 district, which is a neighborhood district, that's where they need to go. So they can go anywhere in a community district. So it's just like the idea is that you're trying to, you've seen funeral homes, they're huge, they have huge parking lots, they have a ton of traffic. Like, would you want to live next to a funeral home?
No.
So, but it makes more sense for it to be a corner, not in the center of the neighborhood. So that's why you can put a funeral home in a community district. That's fine. Change the zoning if you don't want to be on a corner. But if you don't want to deal with changing the zoning, then you need to find an ND2 district that's on the corner. So that's
Or variance,
I guess that you'd have to show that it's a constraint that is unique, that, that you're the only ND2 district in the city that's on a corner that has some sort of constraint that the other ones go.
Is abutting defined? Because I would agree that there's a lot in here constricting based off the roads, the regional roads, community roads. And it talks about it can't be abutting, but when you have one property that's trying to use a certain specific use that says it can't be abutting the road that they have right in front of them, then what happens?
To me, abutting means like you literally, like, your property line is the right of way.
Yeah, so like that whole property then can't be used for that use.
That means they plat. So they're gonna have to plat anyway. So,
So they'd have to carve out a sliver.
yeah, they need to carve out a sliver and make sure, say you have a 10-acre piece of land and it abuts the road. And, say it's a use where you can't abut the road. Well, then they plat the property and they plat off the future lot at the front, and then they develop on the one in the back that's not abutting. And so they left the one at the front for future development that does comply with it.
Is abutting a defined term?
It will be. I think I have it in my definition section, which I haven't added yet. But it absolutely will be. That's a very important word in here. Does that make sense, Jacob? It's like, in the code like this, it's like, with City of San Antonio, there's a reason why land use law firms are so busy, because the codes are so inflexible. In City of San Antonio, you just wouldn't be able to have a funeral home in a neighborhood district at all. And you'd have to get a zone change to some sort of community district. But in this, what you're pointing out actually, in my opinion, provides flexibility. It's not a constraint. It provides flexibility and it says, hey, it's actually promoting mixed use to say, hey, you can actually have a funeral home in this district. You could actually do this administratively. You don't have to go through a zone change, just assuming you don't put it in the middle of the neighborhood.
Okay. All right, let me look at another one.
Come on, give me another one, I'm ready.
Tavern or bar? Why? All right, hang on, let me find it here on the matrix. So it's permitted in all RD3, but if we put it in a CD district, then it has to be at least a half mile away from all other taverns and bars?
In that district,
Okay.
not anywhere else, but just in that district. That means,
Now, okay, does it have to be a half mile from any other bars that are also in a CD district? Or is this a half mile from any bar in any district?
say a half a mile from any bar in the district. The idea is that you don't want a lot of bars in one area, regardless of how many different types of zoning you have. That's my opinion. Hey, like, in the regional district, up by the highway, great. Everybody drink. Get in your car, get on the highway.
Rural bars.
Just don't everybody come down here and drink and drive through our neighborhoods. That's the idea. In our community areas.
That makes
Get
sense.
drunk, get on the highway, and get the hell out of the city.
What's a half mile off of 35? Like, where does that put you?
And a half a mile, I think is, if this is 900 feet, that's 1,800 feet to 2,000 feet. That's gonna be, I think that's gonna be about half a mile right there.
But that's just in this district. So that means that, say there's a bar right here, you can't put a bar down here. You know, I don't, to me, it's just something that's gonna apply. It's kind of a question you guys ask yourself. Do you guys want bars?
It's on the survey.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll find out. But yeah, I mean, to me, community areas, neighborhood areas, like, you guys
So
want bars in there.
these like square footage requirement, like restrictions are only for the limited zoning districts in which they apply. If they are generally permitted in like the RD3 district, they can be as big as they want?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think the thing to remember with the limited, it may seem like at first glance, it may seem restrictive, it may seem onerous. But the logic of the L is not to be onerous. It's actually meant to be the opposite. It's meant to be, in most other cities, they have SUPs. So a property owner has to go out and spend $30,000 on a corporate lawyer or a land use lawyer to help them get an SUP, and you have to go beg for it. Here, a limited means, look, we don't do that stuff. The city's just decided where they want stuff. And the limited means if you meet these limitations, you can do it in this other area. But to me, it's a more thoughtful way of doing an SUP. You know, you could just, your current zoning code requires an SUP for everything. And then you have to burn up thousands of dollars of taxpayer time to go through the SUP process. If you just decide, do we want bars in community districts in the neighborhood? No. And then,
But does abutting apply to a entrance? Going back to the question before. So like,
it's a function of the lot. So like, as long as your property, you don't have any portions of your property that abut that right away. So,
but you still have an access point, like a flag lot.
I don't think a flag lot is allowed here. I'm just kidding. No, I don't. Not in these. Yeah, I think there's a minimum. I mean, a flag lot, as long as you can have a flag lot, as long as the minimum.
Right, but for the use, so if it's a community district use along, or whatever the use is along, say, a regional road, they're doing something, they own the property, like, all right, I want to do something that's not a community or community or regional road, they have to plat it, they have to subdivide to reserve that frontage. But then they'll still need an access point to that regional road for their non-abutting approved use.
Remind me, are we talking about bars or what are we talking about?
Just anything that has a limitation on its location to a certain road.
It's hard to imagine the different scenarios. I mean, I think, flag lots are generally not, as long as, you've got, I think the minimum width for lots is, I can't remember what it is, we'll get into that. But, I think the answer is you have to find a piece of property that doesn't abut that road. You'd have to go to a different.
But you own the property. You just want an access point to that road. You're not abutting it, you're just accessing from that road.
I'm trying to get the scenario.
So any of these where we're cutting it, we're saying community districts along this road.
Mhm.
And then behind that's residential or whatever.
Yeah.
If they're gonna do a residential use that can't abut, or I'm sorry, something that's allowed in a community district that can't abut that road.
Yeah.
Then they can still do it further back, was what we're saying. We'd plat it, you'd reserve.
Yeah.
So that it's not abutting.
I've got an answer for that.
But now they can't, they only own so much property, they need to access.
That's where the block stuff comes in. I mean, I think I would propose that in the scenario that you're talking about, you're assuming that you're gonna have some super deep lot where you're gonna have to create flag lots in order to provide access. 'Cause what's the necessity of a flag lot in the first place? Well, you get those out in the county because we don't build roads in the county. You need a flag lot because there's like a mile before you get to another street, and so people are trying to carve up. But in the city, you're gonna have the blocks. You're gonna have a minimum or a max of 300 feet. So in this case, the idea is that when the developer is subdividing all of that, they're gonna be subdividing, they're gonna be building more roads. So it's up to them to design that subdivision of land to where, like say if it's a single family home or something and it's not allowed to front onto the collector street. Well, they're gonna be subdividing, they're gonna be building other roads. So that single family lot is not going to need a flag lot because there's gonna be a road on the other side that's gonna be built. So that's where.
If it's a privately owned road, if it's an HOA owned road.
Well, you'll still, that's, okay. I think that even if it's an HOA road, that's still fine. It's still fronting onto a road. It's not, an HOA road is still a road through the eyes of this plan. An HOA road is still a neighborhood street.
Yeah, but they'd be able to build a road, even though the use doesn't allow it to abut a certain type of road.
Yeah.
They can still reserve the frontage and build a road to access their non-abutting use.
I think number one, it depends on the scenario. If we're talking about the scenario of the one I think we are, which is the single family home.
Well, no, anyway, even just looking at the funeral home, the scenario we talked about earlier. So corner lots abutting community streets in the ND2 district.
I think for the funeral home, you're typically going to have somebody that's going to find a different piece of land. They're going to go to a CD district. And I would say as a city, I wouldn't lose any sleep over the fact that that person's going to be like, well, we can't do it there. That's going to be one hell of a complicated subdivision in order to be able to do that. Let's go find a CD district. That's what's going to happen. And so that's one scenario. So that's a different outcome. I'd say with the scenario of the single family home, you've got a big piece of land that fronts onto a collector street, and you have the single family home scenario, and they're not allowed to abut on a collector street. Well, if it's a single family home, that developer is probably subdividing into this larger subdivision. It's probably got 50 different tracks. So yeah, the front of it is going to be some sort of retail uses that'll be reserved and sold off as pad sites. And in the back is going to be platted. They're going to put in neighborhood roads, and your single family lots can front off of those roads. So that's an outcome of that scenario. So I totally see what you're saying. Like it's kind of like trying to crack the code. But that's that. And I think that's cool. I love this. And this is important. We need to be cracking the code.
So like outdoor athletics, it can't have frontage on I-35, 64, or regional street. If somebody has, but it's allowed, it's limited use in a regional area. So if somebody wanted to build an outdoor athletic, and I actually know one specifically that wants to do something. They own a property at 1604 and I-35. They want to do outdoor athletics. It can't abut. Yeah. So like just this scenario. So like if somebody wanted to build outdoor athletics here, it can't abut any of these roads. So your comment earlier about the funeral home, they could just simply subdivide to reserve that, which we like, to reserve the retail frontage. But then how are they going to access their outdoor athletics?
Well, I would say the bigger question is, do you want outdoor athletics there? Or do you want some sort of use that actually makes the city money? I designed this particularly to not have it.
Could outdoor athletics be like Top Golf or
Tourists or tourism income, or, we're saving the commercial frontage.
Well, I mean,
they
I'm thinking like Chicken and Pickle.
yeah, chicken and pickle can go there.
No, they want like a softball complex,
Yeah, I'm talking about what I'm talking about is like Top Golf is a retail.
which is.
It's a retail,
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's got stuff in there, so, I think you raise a good point about the Top Golf. Let me look at the outdoor athletics and see, but when I think outdoor athletics, I'm thinking tennis courts and Little League and something that's just this huge regional facility that people come to, and the city of Von Ormy gets nothing except for traffic. When you could have some sort of retail use there. So I think that's the larger question is in this kind of.
So then why would we better define the term and split that up?
Yeah.
That was just an example, trying to get at I don't like the idea of somebody else stopping. They can't do it.
Well, that's the point of zoning. It's like for you guys to tell people what they can and can't do.
But they can do that in that district.
Right. And so that's the thing. I think
the roads that are telling them they can't do it.
Well, but the reason why the roads are telling them they can't do it is because the purpose of that is the number one, make sure that you have, down here, the purpose is to have good compatibility. And over here, the purpose is to make sure that you're developing your city in a way that's actually economically sustainable. That's the reason. The roads are telling them they can't do it because when I design that for you, I'm thinking about the economic viability of the city. And so that's why I say the question is not so much would they be able to do it. I think the question is, do you want them to be able to do it? If you want them to be able to do it, then change the code to allow them to abut.
Or
I
they
don't
can come in
recommend
with
it.
a planned district.
Exactly. Or they can go with a planned district, or they can ask to amend this and change the zoning. Exactly.
Because there's no variance, right? In this, there would be a variance option.
Yeah, you can't, in Texas, you can't get a use variance. Exactly.
It's another reason I really like that planned district.
Yeah.
Oh, it's like the catch-all for any specific project or any specific use.
The planned district, and I always will caveat, the planned district is not meant to be like a fix. It's like a planned district for a church. No, the point of a planned district is to provide flexibility for complicated projects that are great projects, like the Pearl or something like that, where you need to have fire lanes that are nice, pretty, painting, because the big red ones are ugly, stuff like that, or some master plan community where you need these skinny streets and you need alleys and stuff. The point of a planned district is not to merely serve the purpose of providing variances and letting you have uses that you can't do. It has to facilitate a good development. But to your point, the planned district, in my opinion, is one of many tools to provide a city with flexibility. But you always have the ability to amend this. If you want to accommodate somebody, you always have the ability to amend this. You always have the ability to zone change. And at the end of the day, you always have the ability to change your code. I've said this before, if somebody really wants to come to this city and it's a project that you guys really want, you want them to come here, there's nothing that can stop them from coming. You guys can make it happen. This code and these maps, it's intended to protect you. That's it. It's a protective mechanism. So, if you guys change your mind and you decide, hey, we want this whole area just to be athletic fields, great. But for right now, I designed this to protect y'all, protect your tax base, and not make an open door to anything, because then that defeats the whole purpose of having a city and really defeats the purpose of what we're doing right now.
And so they couldn't even do it with their current zoning. So it's
Yeah.
interesting. I guess outdoor amusement, outdoor athletics. Are these defined outside? Okay, that'll be in the.
Yeah, I've got a really messy 17-page definition section that I need to finish. And I will have that done.
17 pages?
It's- Yeah, it's a big font. It'll be smaller, but yeah, I know, I keep, if you notice, like, I remember I always made jokes about having a 100-page UDC, and I think right now it's pretty close. I want to keep the definitions out till it gets codified, and I can still say, hey, it's 100 pages. It's tough. One of these days, maybe 100 pages. I'll take my font size from there. And I think I mentioned it to you there in the previous conversation, but just so everybody knows, there's lots of different chapters in here tonight. And the reason why, because tonight we're talking about zoning, but what zoning means is what state law calls zoning. And there's chapter 211 of the local government code, which is the chapter of state law. All laws are given their authority to exist by some other law, right? And so in this city, y'all are given the authority to have zoning by the state. And that's through chapter 211. And chapter 211 says, you can regulate building height through zoning, you can regulate density, you can regulate setbacks and bulk of buildings and floor aeration, all that kind of stuff. And so some cities just have a zoning code. Like right now, you don't have that zoning code. But we're doing a UDC where it's all together in one organized package. So here, we're talking about zoning, but there's multiple chapters. There's one chapter called buildings. And so this is crafted to be easy for people to use because not everybody knows building requirements or zoning. So you go to the building section, height's in there. It's still a zoning matter. So all of these chapters technically have zoning aspects to them. So that's why we've got the multiple chapters. Thanks.
Not to jump around too much, but on page 39, we have minimum lot areas. Never mind, actually, you're looking at it.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure, so like lot width, so right now we have septic. So everything's septic, right? And so that requires minimum half-acre lot.
Yep.
If somebody's in a commercial, currently zoned commercial, and they wanted to go over to a residential use, and the future plan allows for it, then the only way that would happen is they'd have to have half-acre lots to go on septic. So the lot area, the max is half acre, which would be okay. But then when it comes to lot width, 70 feet would make them like super long. Can we add a carve out or caveat for septic when it comes to these lot widths?
Yeah. No, I mean, I think
until we have sewer, it's hard to like really demand the density.
That's a really great point. I think half acre lot, I think 90 is actually, I think we could change that to 90. Actually, part of what we do is laying out subdivisions too, and a pretty standard half acre lot is like 90 by 150. So that's actually kind of a preferred, that's like an ideal ratio, 90 by 150. So do you want me to just change that 70 to 90? Cool.
And then I don't know how much like septic implicates like residential, commercial, regional, and community uses, but we still have, we have max sizes for those districts as well. I'm sure they'd have different, minimum sizes. I don't know if that would affect.
Yeah, this is honestly kind of one of the hardest things to do. But again, the maxes, that just kind of speaks to trying to effectively use land and not waste land.
Do you have procedures in here for what it would take, like, for the zoning change, for an application to change the zoning?
Yes, that is in the district section. Go to. I almost got coffee. Just thinking about it. Alexis and I were talking about it. We were running short of time. Next time we'll just stop at coffee. Coffee would be nice. Yeah, it's like the last section of. Jacob.
It's on 17.
Oh, yes, it's in the procedures section, general, sorry. Kept it pretty simple, state law already tells you how to do it. Why do we need to go print it out and reinvent it in here? So.
When we talk about fences in 13.09, we talk about shall not exceed 44 inches, shall not exceed 72 inches. Is that high? I would assume so.
When constructed fences and walls for single, two-family. 44 inches is it's 3.5 feet. So
Does that say high though?
Shall not exceed 44 inches if located within a street yard. So
44 inches in height.
Yeah, you want to put in height in there?
But
44 inches wide too.
yeah.
Oh, I got you. Okay. Yeah. Nice. Good call. Good catch. Bring in those concrete butter sticks.
Does this match our existing fence ordinance?
I'm thinking what fence ordinance? I don't know. I don't know.
We passed one last year.
Did you?
Yeah. And I think one thing in there had to be uniform. I wanna say. Like all same building material,
Not mismatched.
not mismatched, like 8 feet of wood, 10 feet of metal. Yeah.
I have,
Then also has to be in good repair.
Some cinder blocks.
Yeah.
I think cinder blocks.
No, I appreciate a good cinder block wall, but it's got to be that way all the way around.
Yeah, exactly.
When we lived in West Texas, everything is cinder block out there. My wife hated it, but I loved it.
Now, okay.
So would this supersede any of the, just for the fence ordinance specifically?
So that's a really great point. I probably need to get with
So
Valerie and look at.
Fence and the sign ordinance.
Same as
Yeah, we're gonna have to talk about repealing certain things.
Yeah. Okay, just devil's advocate here. We know Von Ormy, we know the demographics here. What in most fences, if done in conjunction with your abutting landowner, a nice neighbor will split the cost with you. What if it is not economically feasible for somebody to have the same split cost type of fence all the way around? Or we don't care.
I think our ordinance is just
the front facing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
That's
just
just
the front face of the fence has to be all
It
one
has to be
construction.
uniform, and then what's happening behind the fence that's not visible from the street, as long as it's in good condition.
Yeah, also there's a good repair clause, has to be good repair.
If 50% of it
Yeah,
is damaged, it has to be repaired or taken down.
and I don't know if we can force that, 'cause
It's
there's,
not.
especially in the strip club. Cities.
Isn't it burnt
So-
down?
The
Can
fence
we-
there,
But, so
The fence burned down?
the strip club right there.
we can talk about that on one of the next thing.
Okay. So that's kind of my feedback on the additions. I want to know how that compares to our existing ordinances. We have some really good stuff in there that I don't want to lose. signs. We got quite a bit in here, signs. So yeah, look at our current signs, look at our fences. We talked about the minimums. We've talked about lots of blocks before. I think we had some disagreements on the lengths of the blocks, the block lengths, block perimeters. I don't want to do something too constrictive. I know you have some very strong opinions about that. Kind of pin that I do want to compare that to other cities, just so we're not doing anything too restrictive there. But I don't really have, I'm not prepared. I just want to check it with like Somerset and Lidle and let's compare.
I don't think they're probably gonna have anything. I'll check.
Can you
You know,
check?
Yeah. I'll be honest, like frank, like cities in this region are not real. I'm not gonna, I want to say sophisticated when it comes to that. They just don't. You know, the block link thing. It's really just it's urban design. It's design, and it's kind of a decision for you guys to make as a city.
Let's check, because what I want to be competitive. Bonner wants to be competitive and to get the people in the door.
I need to do a matrix.
Yeah.
I've
I'd be curious how some of the like more restricted things compare to those two other cities specifically, because if somebody's looking at our area, you know, they've got Lidle, Somerset, Bonner, you know, we want to be at the table. We don't want something that we're doing that's more arduous, that's going to cancel us out right away. I'm saying they got water and sewer, so.
think what I can do,
That's
yeah, I'll do like a table and I'll give you a bunch of cities in the region.
When it comes to like lot and block specifically, there might be other things that applies to.
That's the biggest, I mean, you've got, like lot and block is really kind of the biggest site thing. You know, you go north of San Antonio and people care about that, you know.
But I think our next step would be update this, probably do another one of these workshops.
Yeah.
And then get it out.
Yeah, and then get it out to the public, have a public hearings.
And change it, bring it back to you guys, make sure that I heard what y'all were saying.
Yeah. And then any changes in here, reference our ordinances on the signs and fences. And go through all of our ordinances, right? They're all on
typing
time
that right now.
Well, it doesn't take that long. The way she has it, you can click on it, and then you can just see what applies. Not all of them apply to this,
Yeah.
but those that do.
We need to update our
Does this update the building code?
Yes,
building, yes.
yeah, go to the building section. Yeah, y'all have,
We update our billing code.
yeah, y'all have adopted the IBC code. You adopted a standalone code. Yeah. You adopted a standalone code, and so, hey, that's great, at least you got that, you know, but some cities, they'll actually have a chapter in their code of ordinances that addresses building, and so they have supplemental things that you add to that.
So I just noticed something. 1.07 relief procedures, talking about the granting of special exceptions, variance, or appeal.
Mhm.
I didn't think we had anything in variance in this.
No, you have to provide people the ability to get a variance.
So we still have the variance procedures.
Oh, yeah.
Just not a special use permit.
Special use permit, that's what it was.
You've got the council acts as the DOE, right?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
And zoning commission.
Exactly, yeah. So, yeah, the state law says that, you know, you have to provide people the opportunity to ask for a variance. You have to provide them with the opportunity to ask to appeal.
But can we give them a variance for use?
No. Texas is the only state that doesn't allow variance for use. Only regular, like dimensional performance aspect thing. This is where Texas case law, Texas courts have struck down use-based variances.
And so that's the plan district would be the alternative.
Exactly, yeah.
Love that.
Exactly. Plan district or just a zone change, you know?
Is there anything changed with the plan district that we're gonna be considering?
This is the most current.
Has there been any changes to it since we last
I
reviewed?
think so.
That's what we're considering at the meeting at 6.
You can have that.
I thought we had more applicability on PDs. It's been a while since I've
I
read.
don't think that changes.
I thought,
You pulled it out like 2 meetings ago.
hold on.
Pull that ordinance out.
You wanted to,
yeah.
you wanted to do it separately like
Right.
2 meetings ago.
Right, because it had additional
So I don't
process.
think it changed since then.
Yeah. I would have put it in the ordinance.
I guess it was, so like, it applies when it's either mixed use or a traditional neighborhood development requiring more flexible and innovative design standards. Close proximity to a residential district and rezoning to a standard zone district may not adequately address compatibility of uses or the project has sensitive or unique environmental features. Just more limiting than I remember. But I know we've talked about that and like how we could apply in various different situations. Standard zoning, since key is rezoning to a standard zoning district may not adequately address compatibility of uses. What does that mean, compatibility of uses?
We're making sure that, I mean, the use you're going to be allowing to come in there fits into what you envision the use being in that location.
So is that as vague as it doesn't conform to the occupancy uses?
What that means is it acknowledges that sometimes there are gonna be situations where you have like single family homes over here and then you have your piece of property, you have single family homes here, and then you have like something really intense here, but there isn't really a zoning district that works in the middle to zone this that's gonna make the neighborhood happy. You know, and so then it's like, all right, well, let's do a planned development district, and we can go through and cherry pick which uses. You have to always have a base district, right? In a planned development district, there's always a base district. So maybe you got an ND1 district here, which is like, you know, grandma and grandpa and families and stuff. And you got like a really high density industrial district here, and they're asking for like some sort of commercial retail district here that has Whataburgers and stuff. And this neighborhood's like, we don't want Whataburgers. You know, we don't want this stuff here, but there's no in between districts. So then you do a PD, you do the PD district, and then you do that base zoning district that they're asking for that allows for Whataburgers and stuff the neighborhood doesn't want. But then you say the PD district shall be subject to this zoning district, which they asked for, but they're not allowed to do these 5 uses. And that's how you basically negotiate a zoning that makes the neighborhood happy, but still makes the property develop. And in the neighbor, and as an assurance for the neighborhood and the city, they have to provide a site plan. So that's the idea of a PD. It's you know, it threads a needle, it makes everybody happy, and it also shows y'all in the city exactly how it's going to be developed. Everybody feels good.
Any mixed use development be under applicable. So number one. Would any mixed use development be able to apply for a PD, assuming they complete their application?
Totally.
Okay. I didn't know if the more flexible and innovative standards was constricting its potential uses or its audience, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing is like, the idea of a planned development district is not just to give a variance for the sake of giving a variance. The idea of a planned development district is like, say somebody comes in and they just, you know, the zoning code requires a nice looking building, right? With like, it has to be pointed in this direction. It has to be a decent looking building. You can't just do a planned development district, say, we want a variance to not have to put any windows in it. Like, okay, what good is that for? It's gonna be horrible. You know, it's like, that's not an innovative design standard. There's lots of innovative design standards, you know, that maybe don't work. And so that's, like, you talk to architects don't like zoning because it constrains them, because they're artists and they create beautiful things. And how do you box genius, you know? Well, sometimes they have something really cool and it doesn't work with the zoning, so it's intended to facilitate something that's still a superior project, not just be a backdoor variance.
Who determines if it meets the applicability standards?
You guys.
So anybody can put in an application, and then we would decide if this applies or not.
Yeah, I mean,
If it meets this criteria and the rest of it.
you guys always get to decide. Just like with zoning, if somebody came in and said, like, looked at that map right there, you got all this blue, and somebody came in and said, I want to put red right there. I'm going to tell you guys, and Jacob's going to tell you guys, that's spot zoning. Don't do it. And if you guys stay to hell with you and Jacob, we're doing it anyway. Okay, y'all can do that, but that doesn't mean that within 10 days, somebody that lives right next door isn't going to appeal that decision to you guys through state law, which says you have 10 days to appeal an action of y'all, and then they can appeal you guys. And if you guys don't overturn it, then they take it to district court and sue you. So y'all can do whatever you want. That doesn't mean that there aren't going to be. And so same with this. You guys can look at, y'all or a future council can look at this criteria and cross your fingers and put them behind your back and say, yeah, I think it meets the criteria and pass it.
So anybody that came in, had a project, went to the city administrator, said, hey, this is what I want to do, it doesn't fit the zoning, then they can put it for a PD application. We're not, I mean, these are vague enough to really apply to anything, I guess, is kind of what I'm fishing for, right?
Yeah. Again, it's all, y'all are the democracy, y'all are the governing body. It just, you may be challenged, but y'all are the ones.
Well, it's okay, we still have a public hearing.
You're the judges on it, you know, some places, like some cities have a board of adjustment, you know? And the board of adjustment is where somebody would appeal, because you guys are a legislative, y'all are a policy body. A lot of cities, like larger cities, have a board of adjustment. And that's a quasi-judicial body. So if y'all do something that a citizen doesn't like or a property owner doesn't like, they can appeal to the Board of Adjustment, and the Board of Adjustment can overturn you guys. But that's not the case. Y'all are the Congress. Y'all are the Congress, the executive branch, and the Supreme Court all in one. So y'all can decide that.
Okay, and the criteria for approval, when approving the board shall make affirmative findings for each of the following. 1, the city's adopted comprehensive plan, the BIRD, as amended, and other formally adopted city plans.
Yeah.
And then 2, the plan district has high quality development centers that will be required. So that's requiring both of those to be checked off, not either one.
Yeah. And again, like I've written this ordinance in the past for, you know, Leon Valley, there was a council member there. And I wrote similar standards for variances where it said, in order for the Board of Adjustment to approve a variance, they shall make affirmative findings on all of these things. And he said, you're a tyrant. You're closing you're tying our hands to where we can't. I'm like, I'm not telling you can't make affirmative findings. You can tell me that the sky is green and say it's affirmative. That's up to you. What I'm saying is you have to state publicly, I make an affirmative finding of this, and if somebody challenges it, that's going to be the basis for a judge to overturn it, because the judge is going to look at it and say, you affirm that the sky is green, I'm a judge, no, it's blue, you're wrong, I'm overturning you, and that's the basis. So that's the point of having this, and it works both ways. Like, you know, you guys want that as a council. You want to be able to have a guideline and say, we're denying this PD on the basis that we can't make this affirmative finding. So you have something concrete, because that's what keeps y'all's argument strong, is having something defensive, the reason why you made it.
Right, but it's something that we want though, and it doesn't conform to this map, we can't do it.
Well, if you find situations, if you keep having
Do a
situations.
plan amendment.
Exactly. Or you change
So
your code.
you change the plan and say, okay, now that we know these guys are serious and they want to come in here, Well, maybe we don't want it to be community after all. Maybe we can slip a little regional in there.
Or you change your law. Like, again,
Is that a state thing?
Hmm?
Is that a state thing?
No, we change our ordinance.
you change your ordinance just through a hearing. So like, that's the thing I always tell people, like, especially with you guys, y'all don't have any laws. And that's why I'm like, get these things on the book, get this stuff on the books right now. Fail fast and fail hard. If y'all get a developer that comes in the first development right out of the chute, this thing doesn't stand the test, and you're like, wait, that's too constricted. We've got a situation, we have a development, we all agree it's good. And for some unforeseen reason, it doesn't work with this ordinance. Let's change the ordinance.
I'm just fearful that it won't get to that point.
Yeah.
But I don't think so.
And that's the point of, you guys are making laws and so the flip side is you make it so flexible, you allow for garbage development. So I'm on, where I'm gonna err on that side.
Okay, well, do we want to take a break before we start the meeting? Do we have other things we want to hit? We do have other,
What was it?
No, you don't know that.
we have other,
The other one has to do with the city.
yeah.
We have the,
Cool. Discussion on general city business.
I lost it. I don't know it. We are gonna need a lift station for that. It does slow down. So it's gonna need a lift station. The lift station is $3,000.
That's the one we're
There
talking
was
about.
something I was gonna tell you and I wanted to wait because you weren't there yet.
Fort softball?
No. It was something with this, but I don't know, I lost it.
Code enforcement.
Yes, code enforcement, okay. So the mess out there, the MGM mess, can we go chapter 54 on that? Because we've made contact several times and it's just not happening.
Sure.
So I'd
They'll
like
just
to
have to be
proceed
ready
with
to
that.
front the cash to do it until we get reimbursed.
It's just,
It's not a whole lot.
it's an eyesore.
It's an eyesore.
It's
a major
horrible,
eyesore.
and like, people are complaining about rats and snakes, and even with the cold weather. So.
Let's do it.
chapter
Let's
54.
do it.
Condemnation, here we come.
Okay.
Anything else? Okay. Let's take a 10-minute break.